Long before humans were recognized as a major force in the galaxy, they were considered nothing more than myths, stories told by ancient civilizations to explain strange events or inspire their people. For countless generations, humans were the subject of legends, a mysterious species said to have lived on a small, distant planet called Earth. Most galactic civilizations believed that Earth was insignificant, a quiet planet at the edge of known space, hardly worth attention. But the stories of humans persisted, whispered in the halls of starships, debated in academies, and passed down by explorers who claimed to have glimpsed traces of their technology or civilization. These stories painted humans as beings capable of incredible resilience, intelligence, and unpredictability. Yet, despite these whispers, the galaxy largely dismissed them. Humans were considered a cautionary tale, or perhaps a fantasy that entertained scholars and young cadets. But no one truly thought they could exist in reality, let alone compete with the great interstellar powers of the time. The galaxy itself was vast and full of wonders, a place where species thrived on countless planets, each developing its own culture, technology, and military might. Mighty empires rose and fell, civilizations conquered one another, and alliances were forged and broken with alarming speed. In this constantly shifting environment, survival depended on strength, strategy, and knowledge of the stars. In contrast, Earth remained largely hidden, a backwater planet not important enough to attract the serious attention of the galactic powers. This isolation, however, would prove to be humanity's greatest advantage. While other civilizations fought for resources, expanded territories, and developed increasingly destructive technologies for warfare, humans quietly advanced in ways that went largely unnoticed. Their growth was slow, careful, and deliberate, and this gave them the ability to evolve without interference or fear of invasion. Legends about humans often described them as surprisingly tenacious. Ancient texts spoke of their ability to endure extreme climates, adapt to harsh conditions, and survive against overwhelming odds. Humans were said to be resourceful, capable of solving problems that other species would consider impossible. Some scholars believed these traits were exaggerated, products of imagination rather than reality. They compared humans to other species that had conquered entire star systems, and in those comparisons, humans always seemed too weak, too fragile, too small to ever matter. But the stories never fully disappeared. Even the most skeptical historians found themselves intrigued by the tales of a species that could endure everything thrown at them, that could fight back when cornered, and that had a mysterious quality no other species seemed to possess. Many alien civilizations treated humans as nothing more than fairy tales. Space academies would teach young cadets about the legendary humans, often as a lesson in caution or humor. They described humans as unpredictable and stubborn, but always in the context of myth. Some even considered them extinct, believing that if humans had ever existed, they had long since perished in wars or natural disasters. Others thought humans were simply a story created to explain ancient phenomena, like strange structures on distant planets, unusual signals in the stars, or unexplained technological relics scattered across the galaxy. Explorers who reported sightings of human artifacts were often laughed at or dismissed, their credibility questioned, because no one could believe such a small, insignificant planet could produce something so extraordinary. Despite this widespread disbelief, humans continued to develop in isolation. On Earth, they built civilizations, created technology, and learned to harness the power of their planet and the stars. Unlike many galactic civilizations, which relied on sheer numbers or overwhelming military force, humans focused on adaptability, ingenuity, and cooperation. They studied the universe with curiosity rather than conquest, exploring the limits of their abilities and the possibilities of their technology. Slowly, quietly, humans advanced in ways that would one day astonish the galaxy. They learned to build machines capable of incredible speed and strength, develop weapons that could rival the greatest arsenals in the known universe, and train themselves to survive in the most extreme conditions. Yet all of this progress went unnoticed beyond their small planet, hidden behind the veil of myth that had long surrounded them. Legends often hinted at humans' unpredictability, a trait that many species feared without ever understanding it. Ancient stories told of humans who could overcome impossible odds, survive battles that should have been unwinnable, and turn defeat into victory. Some civilizations interpreted this as luck or perhaps divine favor. Others suggested humans were guided by some mysterious instinct, a combination of intelligence, courage, and determination that no one could explain. These qualities made humans fascinating subjects of speculation, even among those who did not believe in their existence. They became a symbol of what a species could achieve if underestimated and left to grow in secret. The isolation of humans also gave them a unique perspective on the galaxy. While other species were embroiled in constant political intrigue, interstellar wars, and the endless pursuit of expansion, humans focused on mastering themselves and their environment. They learned to work together in ways that no other species had, building strong communities, developing strategies to overcome adversity, and honing their skills to perfection. Their small population forced them to rely on intelligence and ingenuity rather than brute force, and in doing so, they created a culture that valued resilience, adaptability, and innovation above all else. Meanwhile, the galaxy outside Earth remained unaware of the threat or potential that humans represented. Interstellar civilizations continued to underestimate them, believing that their myths were harmless examples. Scholars debated whether humans had ever existed. Military strategists ignored the warnings in old texts, and traders dismissed the stories as fanciful legends. In this environment, humans grew stronger, not by competing directly with the galaxy's empires, but by quietly preparing themselves. Every invention, every discovery, and every innovation built toward a future moment when humanity would no longer be ignored. There was also an element of destiny in the stories about humans. Legends suggested that while humans appeared insignificant, they had a hidden potential that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Some civilizations recognized this, but most dismissed it as wishful thinking. The myths spoke of humans as the unexpected champions, capable of emerging from obscurity to challenge empires, defeat mighty fleets, and alter history itself. The idea seemed impossible to most, but for humans, it became a guiding principle. Their entire development, whether intentional or accidental, was moving toward that eventual revelation, the moment when myth would become reality. Even within the human world, there were few who realized the significance of what they were building. People on Earth pursued knowledge, technology, and exploration out of curiosity and necessity, not because they aimed to impress the galaxy. Yet, unknowingly, every step they took was shaping them into a species capable of surviving any threat, overcoming any obstacle, and defying every expectation. The myths about humans were true in ways the galaxy had never imagined, and the day was coming when these long-forgotten stories would finally be proven real. And so, humans continued their quiet rise. On the surface, they were just a species on a small planet, living ordinary lives, facing everyday struggles, and dreaming of a future only they could see. But beneath that ordinary exterior lay extraordinary potential. The galaxy laughed at their stories, ignored the warnings, and dismissed the legends. It believed that humans were nothing more than fairy tales, creatures of imagination, extinct or powerless. And yet, humanity persisted, growing stronger, smarter, and more resilient with every passing year. In the vastness of space, where civilizations rose and fell, humans remained hidden, underestimated, and underestimated again. Their world was small, their population limited, and their presence unnoticed. But the myths were not entirely wrong. Humans were not extinct, and they were far from powerless. They were preparing, learning, and evolving in ways that would eventually make the galaxy rethink everything it thought it knew about them. The stories of their resilience and adaptability were only a glimpse of the truth that was waiting for the moment to reveal itself, when the galaxy would finally see that the legends of humans were not myths at all, but a warning and a promise of what was to come. In every forgotten corner of the galaxy, humans were quietly shaping a future that no one could ignore. Their planet may have seemed insignificant, their species thought mythical, but the foundations of their strength were being laid. And in the end, the galaxy would learn that underestimating humans was the greatest mistake it could ever make. As the centuries passed, the galaxy grew more complex, more dangerous, and more divided. Powerful civilizations continued their endless struggle for control over planets, resources, and trade routes. Star empires expanded, fleets clashed, and alliances were constantly shifting like sand in a storm. In this turbulent environment, survival required strength, strategy, and intelligence, and most species focused all their attention on outmaneuvering one another. Yet, despite the chaos, humans remained largely unseen, a species thought to be mythical and powerless. While others squabbled over territories and riches, humans quietly continued their development, preparing themselves for a future that no one could yet imagine. But myths have a way of becoming reality, especially when they carry the seeds of truth. Slowly, signs of humanity's presence began to surface beyond Earth, though few took them seriously at first. Scouts and explorers, traveling through unexplored sectors, started reporting strange sightings. At first, these reports were minor: and unusual ship passing through a sector, unexplained energy signatures, or highly advanced technology detected on a seemingly insignificant planet. Some dismissed these findings as equipment malfunctions or exaggerations by overenthusiastic observers. Others simply laughed, convinced that the so-called humans could not possibly exist, let alone possess technology capable of rivaling entire fleets. Yet, even as skepticism spread, the reports kept coming, each one more detailed, more difficult to ignore. Humans were beginning to make themselves known, though subtly and strategically. They did not rush into the spotlight or engage in open warfare. Instead, they tested the galaxy, probing, observing, and preparing. Their warships, though rarely seen, were fast, precise, and incredibly resilient. They were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered: small, agile, and highly adaptive, yet capable of delivering devastating firepower. Even the most experienced commanders, upon encountering these ships, struggled to understand their origin. The design was unfamiliar, the tactics unpredictable, and the coordination of human forces far beyond what was expected from a species supposedly trapped on a single, backwater planet. At first, These encounters were isolated incidents. A lone scout might report seeing a strange ship vanish before it could be engaged, or a small group of explorers might encounter human vessels that seemed to anticipate every move. Many dismissals followed. The sightings were errors, hallucinations, but with every incident, the evidence grew harder to ignore. Advanced civilizations, once confident in their supremacy, started to pay attention. Intelligence agencies, military strategists, and political leaders began asking questions. Could it be possible that humans, the legendary species long thought extinct or fictional, were not only alive but also advancing rapidly in secret? The reports coincided with rising tensions in the galaxy. Empires were clashing over valuable planets rich in resources, trade routes were being contested, and alliances were fragile. Every minor conflict carried the risk of escalating into full-scale war. In this environment, any unknown factor could tip the balance, and humans were becoming that unpredictable factor. As rumors of human capabilities spread, some civilizations began to worry that they had underestimated a species they had dismissed for centuries. The idea that humans might possess advanced technology, innovative tactics, and the ability to survive and adapt in extreme situations was alarming. For the first time, the galaxy began to realize that the myths might have been warning signs all along. The rising challenge was not just humans' existence but their intelligence and strategy. Unlike other civilizations, which often relied on brute force, humans had perfected the art of adaptation. They studied their enemies carefully, learning weaknesses and patterns, and developed tactics specifically designed to exploit them. In skirmishes, humans demonstrated an uncanny ability to anticipate the moves of far larger fleets. Their warships, though smaller in number, were organized and coordinated with precision that shocked even the most battle-hardened alien commanders. Each encounter reinforced the growing fear that humans were not merely survivors, they were masters of strategy, capable of turning situations that seemed hopeless into victories. It was during this time that the first real confrontation began to emerge. A coalition of alien empires, confident in their numerical and technological superiority, decided to test humanity. They sought to invade Earth and assert control over the planet they assumed was weak and defenseless. The fleet they assembled was massive, composed of hundreds of warships, each armed with devastating weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They believed they would encounter little resistance, perhaps some old relics of human technology at best, but nothing that could challenge their supremacy. Yet they underestimated the humans completely, failing to recognize the intelligence, resilience, and creativity that lay hidden on that distant planet. When the humans first engaged these invading forces, the results were staggering. Using innovative tactics, they avoided direct confrontations when possible, striking instead at vulnerable points and using the environment to their advantage. Their ships moved with incredible speed and agility, evading attacks that should have been unstoppable. Every maneuver was carefully calculated, demonstrating a level of coordination that confounded their enemies. What was most alarming to the alien commanders was that humans seemed to think several steps ahead. They anticipated strategies, set traps, and exploited weaknesses in ways no one had expected. A species once dismissed as mythical was now proving to be a serious and deadly opponent. These early battles marked a turning point in the galaxy's perception of humans. Rumors spread quickly, and stories of their abilities traveled faster than the humans themselves. Fleets that had once ignored Earth now proceeded with caution, and strategic discussions in galactic councils shifted focus. Leaders who had dismissed humans as insignificant began to realize that the myths might have been closer to the truth than anyone dared to believe. In every corner of the galaxy, speculation grew. If humans were capable of surviving against superior forces in these small confrontations, what might they achieve in a larger war? The very idea that a supposedly minor species could challenge entire coalitions became a topic of both fascination and fear. Despite the growing tension, humans continued to operate with restraint and precision. They did not seek unnecessary conflict, but when provoked, they responded with a level of decisiveness and skill that few species could match. Every engagement was a lesson, both for them and for their enemies. They tested limits, refined strategies, and used every opportunity to learn more about the galaxy around them. Over time, humans became a symbol of unpredictability, the species that no one could fully understand or anticipate. Their mythic reputation, once considered a curiosity, was evolving into a real and present danger for anyone who underestimated them. It was also during this period that human ingenuity became most apparent. They developed weapons and defense systems unlike anything seen before, blending technology, tactics, and intuition in ways that other civilizations had never considered. Their ships were designed for versatility, capable of performing multiple functions in battle, and their crews were trained to think critically, adapt, and improvise. This approach gave humans an edge far beyond their numbers or size. They became masters of asymmetrical warfare, turning disadvantages into strengths and using creativity as a force multiplier. Even the most advanced alien fleets struggled to counter the humans' unconventional methods as encounters continued. The rising challenge became clear. Humans were no longer just surviving, they were redefining the rules of engagement. Their presence forced alien civilizations to reconsider long-held assumptions about the galaxy and their own supremacy. Leaders who had once dismissed the idea of humans as a threat were now forced to take them seriously. Intelligence reports became more frequent, councils debated strategies, and military plans shifted in response to the new reality. The myths had grown into something tangible, and the galaxy began to recognize that humans, once considered insignificant, were now a force to be reckoned with. In the end, this period of rising challenge was about more than just conflict. It was a test of perception, patience, and preparation. Humans had proven that myths could be real, and that a species long thought powerless could change the dynamics of the galaxy simply by existing and developing in secret. The rising tension was not just external, it also shaped humans themselves, forcing them to refine their strategies, enhance their technology, and prepare for the inevitable moment when the galaxy would no longer be able to ignore them. Every encounter, every skirmish, and every narrow escape contributed to a growing confidence and capability that would soon be revealed in full. By the time the galaxy fully realized the truth, humans were ready. The rising challenge had been both a test and a training ground. It had exposed weaknesses, revealed strengths, and prepared them for the larger confrontations that lay ahead. What had begun as myth was becoming reality, and the galaxy was on the verge of discovering that the humans they had dismissed were far more dangerous and capable than anyone had ever imagined. The period of rising challenge had transformed humans from mysterious legends into a species that demanded respect, caution, and fear, a species that was quietly preparing to change the course of galactic history forever. The turning point came suddenly, in a moment that would change the way the galaxy viewed humans forever. For centuries, humans had been considered myths, stories told by those who longed to believe in something extraordinary. Other civilizations assumed that Earth was insignificant, that humans were too small and too weak to matter in the vastness of space. But the first major confrontation shattered that illusion completely. It started with a coalition of alien empires, confident in their superiority. Deciding to strike at Earth, they believed it would be an easy victory, a demonstration of their power against a species they had long dismissed as extinct or insignificant. The fleet assembled for this attack was immense, hundreds of massive warships, armed with the most destructive weapons the galaxy had ever seen. Every commander believed that the humans would fall easily, that their legends would crumble in the face of overwhelming force. Humans, however, were prepared in ways no one had expected. While the galaxy saw them as small and weak, humans had spent centuries quietly advancing in secrecy. They had studied the tactics of other species, learned from their strategies, and developed new methods of warfare designed to exploit weaknesses that others ignored. Their warships were unlike any seen before, smaller than many alien vessels, yet fast, maneuverable, and heavily armed. Human technology combined intelligence with creativity, innovation with practicality. They did not rely on brute force alone. Instead, they leveraged strategy, precision, and adaptability, which allowed them to challenge fleets far larger than their own. When the alien coalition arrived at Earth, they were met with an unexpected reality. Human warships appeared seemingly from nowhere, coordinating attacks with a level of synchronization that no enemy had ever witnessed. Their tactics were unlike anything recorded in galactic history. Humans did not charge directly into battle or waste energy on pointless maneuvers. Instead, they struck at the most vulnerable points of the alien fleet, targeting key command vessels, supply lines, and communication arrays. The aliens were stunned. They had assumed humans were weak and disorganized, but every movement revealed intelligence, strategy, and foresight. It was as if the humans anticipated their every action, always one step ahead, turning every advantage the aliens had into a liability. In the early hours of the conflict, alien commanders struggled to comprehend what was happening. Their largest warships were being disabled or destroyed with unprecedented speed. Smaller squadrons were trapped in clever ambushes, unable to escape. Human crews worked with extraordinary coordination, each action calculated and precise. Unlike many other species, humans trained not only for battle but for unpredictability. They thrived in chaos, turning it to their advantage, rather than being overwhelmed. For the first time, the alien leaders realized that the myths about human stories of cleverness, resilience, and determination were not exaggerations. They were witnessing them in action, and the reality was far more terrifying than any legend. As the battle continued, human ingenuity became even more apparent. They used the environment to their advantage, leveraging planetary defenses, asteroid fields, and space anomalies to create traps and obstacles for the alien fleet. Each maneuver seemed impossible, yet humans executed it flawlessly. Communication between human ships was instantaneous and precise, allowing them to adapt to changing circumstances faster than any alien fleet could respond. Every strategy the aliens attempted was met with a countermeasure. Every assault was anticipated, and every perceived weakness was exploited. By the end of the first day, the invading coalition had suffered losses they had not expected and could not exactly recover from. The turning point was not just about technology or numbers. It was about mindset. Humans approached the battle with a combination of courage, determination, and adaptability that had been underestimated for centuries. They did not panic when faced with superior forces. They did not surrender when their ships were damaged or outnumbered. Instead, they improvised, adapted, and pressed forward with relentless focus. Their resilience became a psychological weapon, demoralizing the alien fleets even as it preserved human strength. Where other species might have crumbled under the pressure of overwhelming force, humans found opportunities to turn each challenge into a stepping stone toward victory. One of the most remarkable aspects of this turning point was the way humans used deception and strategy to their advantage. The alien commanders assumed that their size and firepower would dominate the battlefield. They believed that overwhelming force alone could crush the humans. But humans thought differently. They did not confront the enemy head-on unless it was advantageous. Instead, they feigned retreats, set traps, and used misdirection to lure alien forces into positions where they could be destroyed efficiently. Entire squadrons vanished from the battlefield only to reappear in a perfect strike formation, catching the enemy off guard. Every encounter highlighted the difference between the humans' intelligence-driven approach and the aliens' reliance on power alone. News of these events began to spread across the galaxy, carried by scouts, messengers, and reports from surviving alien forces. Civilizations that had once laughed at the idea of humans now watched in disbelief as stories of their capabilities circulated. They spoke of humans as unpredictable, unstoppable, and terrifyingly efficient. The legends that had existed for centuries were no longer just stories, they were proof of reality. Other species began to reconsider their strategies, alliances, and assumptions. Humans, once thought to be mythical, had become a tangible and immediate presence that could not be ignored. The turning point was also personal for the humans themselves. For generations, they had lived in the shadow of myth, underestimated and ignored. Now, in the heat of battle, they were proving their worth, not just to the galaxy but to themselves. Each engagement reinforced their confidence and solidified their strategies. They realized that their years of preparation, innovation, and resilience had been leading to this moment. The humans who had once been ordinary citizens, engineers, scientists, and pilots were now the defenders of their species, the living embodiment of the myths that had been whispered across the stars. Their actions in these early confrontations demonstrated that humans were not just survivors, they were a force capable of reshaping the galaxy's perception of power. The strategy and determination. The alien coalition, meanwhile, struggled to regroup. Their confidence had been shattered, their strategies disrupted, and their losses mounting. Commanders who had assumed dominance were forced to retreat, reconsider tactics, and confront the reality of a species they had dismissed for too long. It became clear that humans were no ordinary species, and that their myths had been grounded in truth. The alien leaders now faced a dilemma they had never anticipated. How could a species once considered insignificant defeat forces far larger and technologically superior? This question would haunt them for generations. As the humans' actions continued to defy expectation, every victory in these early battles reinforced a turning point, demonstrating that humans were not only capable of defending themselves but also of striking fear into the galaxy. They had taken control of the narrative, transforming the myths of old into a reality that others could not ignore. The precision, strategy, and courage displayed by humans created a reputation that would precede them in every sector of space. From that moment on, any fleet or civilization encountering humans knew they were dealing with a species that could think, adapt, and dominate in ways that defied conventional logic. By the end of these initial confrontations, it was undeniable. Humans had arrived. The turning point was complete, and the galaxy's assumptions had been shattered. Humans were no longer a story whispered in the corners of the galaxy. They were an undeniable force, capable of challenging entire coalitions and rewriting the rules of engagement. The myths were real, and the reality was far more impressive and terrifying than anyone had ever imagined. This moment marked a fundamental shift in galactic history. Where once humans had been ignored, dismissed, or ridiculed, they were now recognized as a species of immense power, intelligence, and resilience. The turning point had transformed humans from hidden legends into active participants in the galaxy's complex and dangerous conflicts. Their actions in battle proved that no matter how small or underestimated a species might seem, ingenuity, strategy, and determination could change the course of events in ways no one could predict. The consequences of this turning point would echo across the stars for generations. Other civilizations began to reassess their alliances, strategies, and assumptions. Fear and respect for humans grew, and the stories of their victories spread even faster than their ships could travel. Humanity had not only survived but had proven that myths, no matter how old or dismissed, could contain the seeds of reality. The galaxy would never again take humans lightly, and every species now faced the challenge of adapting to a new reality, one in which humans were no longer hidden, no longer weak, and no longer imaginary. In the end, the turning point was about more than just a single battle. It was the moment when humans stepped out of myth and into reality, when their hidden strengths were revealed to a galaxy that had long underestimated them. It was a demonstration of the power of preparation, intelligence, and resilience. And it was the first sign that the legends about humans were not only true, but also just the beginning of a story that would continue to astonish, terrify, and inspire the galaxy for generations to come. The culmination of humanity's hidden rise and cunning strategy finally arrived in a battle that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the perception of humans across the galaxy. The earlier encounters had served as warnings, brief demonstrations of human ingenuity and resilience. Now, the moment of true reckoning had come, a large-scale conflict where humans would be tested like never before, against enemies who commanded overwhelming fleets, superior technology, and centuries of experience in galactic warfare. This was not a skirmish. It was a decisive confrontation, one that would either confirm humanity's legendary status or see them crushed under the weight of forces far beyond their numbers. The galaxy watched with bated breath, some skeptical, some curious, but all soon to witness something extraordinary. Humanity approached this climactic battle with a combination of patience, intelligence, and precision that had been honed over decades. Every ship, every crew, every weapon system had been tested and refined to perfection. Unlike their opponents, who relied on raw power, humans relied on adaptability, quick thinking, and a deep understanding of both their own capabilities and the weaknesses of their enemies. Their warships were designed to be multifunctional, able to maneuver through tight spaces, strike at critical targets, and recover quickly from damage. Human crews were trained to anticipate multiple scenarios, communicate flawlessly, and execute plans that balanced creativity with efficiency. Every detail was accounted for, and yet they remained flexible, ready to change tactics instantly as the battle unfolded. The alien coalition that had decided to invade human territory was massive, confident, and certain of victory. Their fleets were composed of hundreds of ships, each one bristling with devastating weapons, advanced shields, and experienced crews. These forces had destroyed planets, subdued rebellious colonies, and crushed entire civilizations in the past. They assumed humanity would be no different. They expected fear, hesitation, and eventual surrender. What they found instead was something no one could have predicted. Humans struck with precision and speed, exploiting weaknesses that even the most seasoned alien strategists had overlooked. They moved in perfect coordination, like a single organism operating with flawless instinct. From the very first engagement, it was clear that humans had turned every disadvantage into an advantage. Their fleets were smaller and fewer in number, but they compensated with strategy, speed, and adaptability. Rather than confront the alien forces head-on, humans used deception and misdirection, drawing sections of the fleet into traps where they could be neutralized with maximum effect. They used the terrain of space to their benefit, maneuvering around asteroid belts, planetary rings, and cosmic anomalies to gain the upper hand. Every attack, every retreat, every repositioning was calculated to create confusion, disrupt enemy formations, and amplify the effectiveness of their own forces. The alien commanders quickly realized that brute force would not prevail against the humans. Traditional tactics, massive bombardments, overwhelming fleet formations, and reliance on sheer numbers proved ineffective. Every offensive move was met with a counter, every advance anticipated, and every weak point exploited. Human warships seemed to appear where they were least expected, striking with deadly precision and then disappearing before a counterattack could be organized. This level of tactical brilliance was unprecedented, and it forced even the most experienced alien leaders to reconsider their assumptions. They began to understand that they were dealing with a species that not only fought intelligently but also adapted in real time, learning from each skirmish within the larger battle. Humans also demonstrated a remarkable psychological edge. The aliens had expected fear and hesitation. Instead, they encountered unwavering determination. Human crews remained calm under fire, coordinated with unwavering precision, and made split-second decisions that consistently outperformed their larger, more heavily armed opponents. Their resolve became a weapon in itself, demoralizing the enemy and forcing mistakes that could be exploited. It was clear that humans possessed not only advanced technology and innovative tactics, but also an indomitable spirit that could not be broken, no matter how dire the situation. As the battle intensified, humans began to strike at the core of the alien coalition's strategy. They identified command ships, supply lines, and communication hubs as critical targets, focusing their attacks on the points that would cripple coordination and reduce overall effectiveness. These strikes were executed with exacting precision, often bypassing the heavily defended front lines to hit the heart of the enemy's command structure. In many cases, entire alien fleets were thrown into chaos after a single human strike, unable to coordinate or respond effectively. This approach showcased not only strategic brilliance but also a deep understanding of how to exploit both physical and psychological weaknesses. Despite the overwhelming odds, humans were relentless. Every loss, every damaged ship, was immediately addressed with ingenuity and quick adaptation. They repaired, reconfigured, and redeployed faster than their enemies could react. Their ability to turn adversity into opportunity was unmatched. Where other species might have faltered under pressure, Humans thrived, using every challenge as a learning experience to refine tactics and improve coordination. It was this combination of resilience, intelligence, and adaptability that ultimately allowed them to withstand attacks that would have destroyed lesser fleets in the midst of battle. The human leadership displayed extraordinary foresight and courage. Commanders coordinated complex maneuvers across vast distances, issuing orders that balanced risk and reward with remarkable clarity. They understood that victory did not rely solely on destruction but on efficiency, precision, and maintaining the initiative. Every action taken by the humans was deliberate, every decision weighed carefully, and every resource used to its maximum potential. This level of command and control, coupled with the adaptability of individual crews, created a synergy that the alien coalition could not match. That as the battle reached its peak, the tide turned decisively in humanity's favor. Alien forces, once confident in their dominance, found themselves overwhelmed by tactics they could not predict, technology they could not counter, and determination they could not break. Sections of the fleet were destroyed or disabled, command structures collapsed, and remaining forces were forced to retreat in disarray. The humans had not only defended their territory but had inflicted significant losses on a far superior enemy, demonstrating that their myths were not just stories but a living reality of power, strategy, and resilience. The climax of this conflict was not only about military victory but about transformation. Humanity had proven that it could challenge entire coalitions, defend its home, and emerge stronger from engagements that would have crushed other species. Their actions sent a message to the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated, and their reputation as mere myths was a dangerous misconception. This moment of triumph marked the full realization of centuries of preparation, intelligence, and innovation, a point at which the hidden potential of humanity became undeniable. The victory also showcased humanity's ability to innovate under pressure. In the midst of combat, human engineers and strategists devised new tactics, weapons, and technologies in real time, exploiting opportunities that emerged during the battle. They demonstrated that adaptability was not just a principle but a practical skill, capable of turning the smallest advantage into a decisive factor. The combination of foresight, creativity, and precise execution was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. It was a demonstration of what humans could achieve when driven by necessity, courage, and ingenuity. By the end of the conflict, humans had not only secured their homeworld but had also altered the perception of their species across the galaxy. No longer could they be dismissed as myths or legends. Their technology, strategy, and resilience had proven that they were a force capable of challenging empires and reshaping the balance of power. The galaxy, once confident in its superiority, had been forced to acknowledge a new reality. Humans were real, formidable, and unstoppable when united in purpose. The resolution of this climactic battle left an enduring mark on both humans and the galaxy. Humans celebrated their victory, not with arrogance but with recognition of the journey that had brought them to this point. They reflected on the years of preparation, training, and innovation that had allowed them to face impossible odds and prevail. Their success was a testament to their perseverance, intelligence, and unity, and it would serve as a foundation for future endeavors in the galaxy. Meanwhile, alien civilizations struggled to comprehend the implications of their defeat. What had been dismissed as myth was now a tangible force that could not be ignored. Commanders and leaders had to reassess strategies, alliances, and assumptions, recognizing that humans had forever changed the rules of engagement. The psychological impact of encountering a species that defied expectations and triumphed against overwhelming odds would influence galactic politics and military strategy for generations. In the end, the climax and resolution of this battle were about more than just survival or victory. They represented the emergence of humanity from the shadows of myth into the light of reality. Humans had proven that preparation, intelligence, resilience, and adaptability could overcome even the greatest obstacles. They had transformed the galaxy's perception of their species, establishing themselves as a power that demanded respect, caution, and awe. The lessons of this battle would echo across the stars, a reminder that myths often contain truths, and that the underestimated may rise to greatness when the time comes. Humanity's success in this climactic conflict set the stage for future challenges and opportunities. They had proven their capability, demonstrated their ingenuity, and secured their place in the galaxy. Yet even in victory, humans understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown threats and unpredictable events. The turning point of confrontation had become a launchpad for further advancement, exploration, and defense. The legacy of this battle would inspire generations of humans to embrace their potential, innovate fearlessly, and face the future with courage and confidence. The galaxy had finally witnessed what humans were capable of. The legends were no longer stories, they were reality. And from this point forward, humans would be remembered not as myths but as a species whose determination, intelligence, and unity could change the course of history, challenge the most powerful forces, and leave an indelible mark on the universe itself. After the climactic battle that had finally revealed humanity's true strength, the galaxy was forever changed. Humans were no longer myths, stories told in hushed whispers, or a species dismissed as insignificant. Their actions in battle had proven beyond doubt that they were intelligent, resilient, and capable of extraordinary feats. The surviving alien fleets retreated, some out of fear, others to regroup and reconsider their strategies. Reports of humanity's capabilities spread quickly, traveling faster than any starship could. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had once scoffed at human legends now faced a reality that could not be ignored. The aftermath of this confrontation was not just about recovery or reflection. It was about redefining the position of humanity within the complex web of interstellar politics, alliances, and power. On Earth, the sense of relief was palpable, but it was coupled with a growing awareness of responsibility. Humans had survived impossible odds and had demonstrated their ability to defend themselves and even challenged the mightiest fleets in the galaxy. Yet they understood that victory in a single decisive battle did not guarantee safety in the long term. Other civilizations, having witnessed the humans' skill and ingenuity, would likely approach with caution, but they might also return with greater force, new strategies, or unexpected alliances. Humanity now had to balance pride in their accomplishments with a sobering knowledge that the galaxy had taken notice, and attention brought both opportunity and danger. The first consequence of this newfound recognition was a shift in diplomatic relationships. Previously, humans had been ignored, largely irrelevant to the political and military affairs of interstellar civilizations. Now, however, they had become a critical player. Alien governments, once confident in their superiority, began sending envoys, emissaries, and intelligence gatherers to understand humans better. Some sought alliances, hoping to benefit from humanity's technology, tactics, or influence. Others approached cautiously, afraid of provoking a species that had proven it could defeat fleets many times its size. Across these interactions, humans demonstrated the same careful calculation they had displayed in battle. They negotiated with patience, intelligence, and a clear understanding of their own position, ensuring that any alliance or agreement would serve their interests while minimizing risk. In parallel with diplomacy, humanity turned its attention to learning from the conflict. Every engagement, every tactic, and every outcome was studied carefully. Human engineers, scientists, and strategists analyzed their successes and failures alike, identifying ways to improve ships, weapons, communications, and training methods. The lessons of war became a catalyst for advancement. Ships were upgraded with new defensive and offensive capabilities. Weapons were refined for precision and efficiency, and command structures were strengthened to allow faster decision-making and adaptability. Humans recognized that their survival depended not just on strength, but on constant innovation and vigilance. Equally important was the reflection on humanity's own resilience and unity. The battle had required coordination on an unprecedented scale, forcing individuals and crews across Earth to act as one cohesive force. It demonstrated that humans were capable of extraordinary cooperation, even under extreme pressure. Civilians, engineers, scientists, and soldiers all contributed in ways that complemented one another, reinforcing the notion that humanity's greatest strength was not just technology or numbers, but the ability to work together intelligently and efficiently. This insight influenced future policies, training programs, and even cultural norms, emphasizing collaboration, problems, and adaptability as essential components of survival and advancement. Beyond the immediate practicalities, the aftermath prompted deep philosophical reflection. Humans began to consider their place in the galaxy, their responsibility to other civilizations, and the legacy they wished to create. They realized that they had been underestimated for centuries, not just because of their size or power, but because of the myths that surrounded them. Those myths had painted humans as insignificant or extinct, and in many ways, that misconception had protected them, allowing humanity to grow, innovate, and prepare in secret. Now, however, the galaxy knew the truth, and humans faced the challenge of shaping their identity and reputation going forward. They had to balance the image of strength and capability with wisdom and diplomacy, ensuring that their actions would inspire respect rather than fear alone. The psychological impact on humans themselves was profound. Having proven their strength, they now had to contend with the weight of expectation. Future generations would grow up knowing that humanity had faced the most powerful forces in the galaxy and had prevailed. This knowledge instilled both pride and responsibility: pride in their achievements, in their ingenuity and courage, and responsibility to maintain that standard, to continue preparing, and to ensure that humans would never again be dismissed or underestimated. Leaders and citizens alike recognized that survival and success required vigilance, continuous learning, and an unwavering commitment to improvement. Across the galaxy, the perception of humans changed almost overnight. Other species began to reevaluate their assumptions about power, strategy, and intelligence. The belief that humans were a minor or irrelevant species was replaced with cautious respect, if not outright fear. Military strategists studied human tactics, scientists examined their technology, and diplomats approached negotiations with greater care. The stories of human ingenuity and resilience, once whispered as myth, became documented and analyzed, influencing policies and planning across countless civilizations. Humans had not only survived, they had become a benchmark against which other species measured strength, creativity, and potential. The aftermath also inspired humans to think about exploration and expansion. With the galaxy aware of their capabilities, opportunities emerged to establish new territories, explore uncharted sectors, and engage with civilizations that had previously ignored them. These endeavors were undertaken carefully, balancing curiosity with caution, diplomacy with strategic planning. Humans realized that their newfound reputation provided both protection and responsibility. They could assert influence, negotiate alliances, and participate in galactic affairs in ways that were previously impossible. But they also had to act with integrity to maintain their credibility and avoid unnecessary conflicts. Cultural reflection was another important aspect of the aftermath. Humans began documenting their history, their strategies, and their experiences in the climactic battle, ensuring that future generations could learn from the past. Stories of bravery, ingenuity, and resilience were celebrated, but lessons in humility, preparation, and adaptation were emphasized as well. The battle had not only been a military achievement, it had been a defining moment in human identity. By reflecting on their history, humans solidified the values that had allowed them to succeed: intelligence, adaptability, unity, and courage under pressure. These principles became central to the way humans approached the future, both individually and collectively. In addition, humans began to consider their role in the wider galactic community. They understood that their victory had consequences beyond Earth, influencing the balance of power and the behavior of other civilizations. Some species might seek cooperation, others might harbor resentment or fear, and some might test humanity in the future. Humans realized that survival and influence depended not only on military strength but on diplomacy, strategy, and reputation. They began building relationships carefully, leveraging their newfound credibility to establish networks of trade, communication, and cooperation, while remaining prepared for potential challenges. The technological and strategic advancements resulting from the battle continued to evolve. Human engineers and scientists, inspired by the necessity of survival, innovated at a pace unmatched in history. New classes of warships were designed for versatility, speed, and precision. Weapons systems were refined for efficiency and adaptability. Training programs focused not only on combat skills but on problem-solving, critical thinking, and the ability to adapt to unpredictable circumstances. Humans were preparing not just for the next battle, but for a future in which they would be recognized as a major power in the galaxy. Yet, even amidst these preparations, humans did not lose sight of the lessons learned. They understood that overconfidence could be dangerous and that vigilance was essential. Every victory was a reminder of their potential, but also of the risks inherent in underestimating the galaxy or overestimating their own capabilities. Reflection became a central part of human strategy, ensuring that history informed the present and guided future actions. This careful balance between pride, caution, and ambition became a defining feature of humanity's approach to both defense and expansion. Ultimately, the aftermath of humanity's decisive confrontation was about transformation. They had moved from myth to reality, from obscurity to prominence, and from underestimation to recognition. The galaxy now saw humans as a force that could not be ignored, a species capable of extraordinary achievements, and a civilization defined by resilience, intelligence, and unity. For humans themselves, the experience fostered a sense of identity, purpose, and responsibility. They had proven their strength, but they also understood that the true measure of a species lay not only in battle but in preparation, adaptability, and the ability to learn from experience. The long-term reflection on this period emphasized that humans had changed the galaxy not just through their victory, but through the example they set. They demonstrated that myths can contain truths, that intelligence and resilience can outweigh numbers and brute force, and that preparation and adaptability are as critical as raw power. Future generations of humans would grow up with these lessons ingrained, shaping a civilization that valued ingenuity, courage, and strategic thinking as much as technology or military might. In the end, humanity's emergence from myth to reality was a story of triumph, reflection, and transformation. That they had survived impossible odds, demonstrated unmatched skill and resilience, and forced the galaxy to recognize their true capabilities. The aftermath was not merely about what had been achieved, but about the new path that lay ahead, a path of continued growth, exploration, and influence. Humans had stepped into the galaxy as equals, no longer myths or legends, but as a civilization ready to shape the future, confront challenges, and leave a lasting legacy among the stars. The reflection on these events emphasized one enduring truth: underestimating humans had been the galaxy's greatest mistake. Now, as humans looked to the future, they carried with them the confidence, knowledge, and determination forged in battle, knowing that their place among the stars was not earned through chance, but through intelligence, unity, and relentless perseverance. The aftermath was both a celebration of what had been achieved and a preparation for what was yet to come. testament to the enduring spirit of humanity, a species that had truly risen from myth to legend in its own right.